Still, must I hear? Shall hoarse Fitzgerald bawl his creaking couplets in a tavern hall, and I not sing? Lest, haply, Scotch reviews should dub me scribbler and denounce my muse. Prepare for rhyme, I'll publish, right or wrong. Fools are my theme, let satire be my song. Oh, nature's noblest gift, my grey goose quill. Slave of my thoughts, obedient to my will. Torn from thy parent bird to form a pen, that mighty instrument of little men, the pen, foredoomed to aid the mental throes of brains that labour big of verse or prose, though nymphs forsake and critics may deride the lover's solace and the author's pride. What wits, what poets dost thou daily raise? How frequent is thy use, how small thy praise. Well, that's fun. So this is week 41, and this is an excerpt from Lord Byron's English Bards and Scotch Reviewers. This is kind of a continuation of the last couple sonnets I did, or last couple weeks I did. I focused on some of Lord Byron's early poetry. I'm doing this as part of some prep work for a show I'm performing in November, production of Tom Stoppard's Arcadia. That's going up at the Hatbox Theatre, opening November 3rd. And this is really where we start to get into the meat of connection points for me in that play, because this text is actually mentioned in the play as there are a series of characters in the play that are living in the English countryside, and Lord Byron is just coming onto the scene. This particular cast of characters is set in 1809, I believe. And so that's like a young, really young Byron, like 20 or something like that. And so yeah, there's a scene that happens before he writes this English Bards and Scotch Reviewers. Oh no, I think it's about right when he's releasing it. Because essentially the last couple weeks that we did, Lord Byron wrote some early poetry when he was really young, and then it got totally ripped to shit by critics writing for the Edinburgh Review, I think, and which was a Scottish magazine that essentially criticized, mainly harshly critical of poetry, as opposed to, and Byron kind of mentions here that they don't really have a nice word to say about anybody, and they really didn't pull punches. It wasn't really super substantial criticism, but it was kind of just like, this poetry sucks, this guy should never write poetry anymore. And so Byron did not take that lying down, and so he wrote this. And so this is the very beginning of English Bards and Scotch Reviewers, the first probably 15 or so lines, and he goes on and on, and he's pissed, and so this is, I really enjoyed this response. I don't think his early poetry was without fault. It's not like it was this amazing, beautiful stuff. And they were, I don't know, the Edinburgh Review may have had some fair points that, it's not. But it's the work of it was the work of like a 17-year-old. Of course, it's not going to be great. But I think he builds on it here, and I think a pissed off Byron works better. Yeah, this is fun. And I think that's it. I think he just probably enjoys this, or is beginning to enjoy this. It's written. It flows. It just flows so well. I think that there's a few kind of telling things he says. One of the things he says. I was just looking at my notes. Prepare for rhyme. Like, holy crap! This is a rap. This is like really. How melodramatic can you get? I loved that when I was reading and I got to prepare for rhyme. I was like, oh my god, who is this guy? But the following line, actually, I'll publish right or wrong, is a huge is a huge story point in Arcadia, because one of the things they deal with in that play is the idea of, you know, is something more, is it more worthwhile to be objectively right, or to be famous and publish something and have people think you're right and you just die before you're proven wrong, which is kind of a, you know, it's very much a thing. That's a very real thing in academia, right? Like if you're trying to write a thesis, if you're trying to write something really, really controversial, and that will get noticed, which is kind of what you have to do, right? If you want to be an academic, if you want to put your stamp on something, you kind of have to rock the boat and try to, buck whatever the status quo is, because otherwise who cares, right? And the reality is, certainly with science, someone's going to come along and prove you wrong. Like, science evolves over time, and we're consistently wrong. That's the only thing I can really go to the bank on, is that we're probably going to be wrong about more stuff in science. So there are people that have written papers that are wrong, and they're going to be maybe they aren't proved wrong today, but they're going to be someday. But it doesn't matter if you die first, because then you're dead and you don't care if you were proven wrong. So that statement, I think that maybe it's not quite as packed with meaning in this context as it is in the play Arcadia, but immediately I was like, oh wow, Tom Stoppard read this, and that's hugely informed one of the characters in Arcadia. So, and it is but it is an interesting thing to think about, like. And heck, you see it in like politics now, right? It's like, if you talk loud enough, it doesn't really matter if you're right, if you're publicly supported. So it's kind of similar to this instance. But I'll publish right or wrong. He doesn't care. He's just gonna write this. He's gonna tear him to shit. People are gonna read it. It doesn't matter. Like, he is gonna make fools out of people. It's so deliciously cruel. I also made a note. So he says something that I found kind of interesting, because he kind of goes off on this little, he talks about his pen and this thing that, noblest gift, my gray goose quill, nature's noblest gift, my gray goose quill. He talks about the pen being the mighty instrument of little men, and he's talking about himself, which is, I find kind of interesting, because I feel like it's a dig at these reviewers, but it's also like he's kind of digging himself, I guess. I found interesting. So it's like, is he being modest? Does he realize it? I just found it kind of interesting that he made that kind of like, that you're writing a satire. You're writing a satire of people's things, of what people have written about stuff, and you're talking about how insignificant, or you're talking about what that says about a person if they find their strength in their pen. You're saying that makes them a little man. That's Byron. Like, he was not a physical specimen. He would piss people off and challenge people to duels and get challenged to duels and then never fight them, and he was a little man in that sense. So I just thought that was interesting, that was laced within this like relentless barrage. And so I'm excited to dive into this text a little bit more, and I'm planning on do another excerpt from this next week. Oh man, it just rolls off the tongue. It flows so easily, and it's like Hamilton, right? Like one of the songs at the end of Hamilton is just these back and forth letters between Hamilton and Burr. And they were just shitting on each other through these letters that were poetry, but it was like a rap battle. And that's what this is too. This is very much like just relentlessly calling people out. I found this a really refreshing, fun piece, and I'm looking forward to diving into it more next week. So thanks for watching. Happy Sunday.